Hey, Countdown City Geeks. We're back again. This time we get to talk to an artist who got to work on IPs that are my favorite from Justice, Young Justice, uh, Batman. If you haven't seen the animated series that was out where um, they had a crazy looking Joker, and then, of course, Doctor Who. That is my favorite thing. I just like too much stuff, as you can tell in the background, my Harley Quinn. But yes, we're going to get Christopher Jones in the room. Before we get him in, let's give a quick shout out to Dragon's Lair Alamo Ranch. Uh, this is a place if you love comics, if you love Warhammer, D&D, 40K, Magic, Pokemon. This is where you want to go. And then also let's talk about Casa real quick. Casa is having their show November 15th, 2025 at the Red Oak Ballroom at Norris Center. This is basically a convention that's focused on indie writers, indie artists, mainstream comic book artists and writers. If you have your books that you want to get signed by these creators, bring them out. If you have blank sketch covers, you want to get some artwork on them, this is where you want to go. But let's not wait any longer. Let's get Christopher in the room.
I couldn't wait any longer. How you doing?
Hey, thank you for waiting, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come on this podcast and talk about you working in the industry.
Well, it is my pleasure. It's funny you mentioned the Batman series I was involved with. At the time, I would describe it to friends as it's the Batman show that came on after the one that everybody loved. Which was unfair to that show. It's a show that I think has gotten more respect as years have gone on. But at the time, it was the animated series that threw itself on the grenade of being the first departure from that shared universe DCAU chain of shows. And so it got all of the blowback for, no, if it's not Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill and looks like Bruce Timmar, it's not Batman. Which, then eventually people figured out, like, oh, every few years there's going to be a new Batman show. That's just how this works.
The Batmobile was freaking awesome. I love the Batmobile.
They had two different Batmobiles on that show, and they were both freaking awesome.
Yeah, and then the crossover. Okay, we're here to talk so much, but this one. Okay, when they crossed over with Superman, that was freaking awesome.
We got to do a Superman guest appearance in the comic as well.
Yeah,
and I loved doing that issue because not only did I get to draw Superman, which was great, but it gave me an opportunity to do fun things like we had a scene where Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent met face-to-face, and then later, of course, Batman and Superman meet face-to-face. And I made a point that when they were face-to-face, Superman was about an inch taller than Batman, but when it's Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, you can see that Clark is slouching a little bit, and Bruce Wayne is about an inch taller than Clark Kent. Because, you got to do stuff like that. And just playing with, like, the difference in body language. Batman, I always had, like, leading with his like, head and shoulders. He always was, like, coming into a room like a panther. And Superman just, like, like lead with the chest. It's just put the S shield out there, and that's how he, presents.
Okay, well, then I was going to ask. So the design for that suit for that series, did they give you the design of what they wanted?
Yeah, so like so many of the comics I've worked on based on animated properties, when the show exists first, they have all kinds of model sheets and reference, and hopefully they hook you up with a good supply of that stuff, so you're not left to fend for yourself. There's one show, and I won't single it out, that like they did not provide me with a whole lot, so I was like constantly like doing Google image searches to find my reference for things. But with the Batman, which the comic was the Batman Strikes, they gave me it was CD-ROMs at the time, just to give you a sense of the era. These days it would just be like, here's access to the database. But back then they sent in the mail CD-ROMs that had character models, backgrounds, all kinds of reference. And so, whenever I do a comic like that, my goal is always, certainly I'm bringing some of my own sensibilities to it in the composition and the storytelling and all of that, and certainly even a certain amount of my own art style. But I'm trying to deliver for the reader, for the audience, something that feels as much like the source material as I can do in a comic. So whether that's a live action thing, whether that's an animated thing, I'm trying to capture the look and feel as much as I can, given the medium I'm working in. So yeah, I'm trying to stay faithful to the models for that show, which Jeff Mitsuda was the lead character designer on that show. And since I wasn't, on the inside when they were doing all that initial work, I don't know how much he did everything or if it was like a team he was leading, but he defined the art style for that show. And
Wow.
I was trying to stay true to that. So yeah, if you look at that, I mean, I did several issues of Justice League Adventures, which was
Yes.
based on the Bruce Timm produced Justice League animated series, and so that was adhering to that art style, which hopefully looked noticeably different than what I did on the Batman Strikes and then Young Justice later on, and all these different shows.
Wow. I'm gonna show some of your stuff, like sketch work that you do, like on,
Sure.
for commissions and stuff. But where did you start? Like, okay, I'm in high school, I'm in middle school. When did you say, okay, this is what I want to do, is get into the comic world or art?
It was earlier than that. I don't remember ever not wanting to draw comics. So most people's parents, if their kid was ever into drawing at all, have boxes in an attic somewhere
Yeah.
full of like old drawings and things. Well, my mom didn't just have old drawings of mine. I was trying to make my own comics as a little kid. I mean, it was pretty nonsensical to look at. It's not like I can look at that stuff now and like, oh, I interesting narrative I'm putting together here. But I was it would literally be like stacks of paper folded, that it was meant to be a comic book story. It was meant to have some kind of narrative flow to it. And so, as I'm growing up and the drawing is developing, you're also seeing those visual storytelling skills develop. And then the big key event in my origin story, as it were, is my mom made every effort in the world to be supportive
Wow.
of her artistically inclined son who wanted to draw comic books, but did not know any more about the comic book business and industry than most Midwestern mothers do. So she, when I was 10 years old, went with me down to the office of our local newspaper, which was we were living in a small town in southern Minnesota named Owatonna, and it
Oh
was the
wow.
Owatonna People's Press, wanting to know if there's anybody there we could talk to about her son that wants to draw comics, because we knew there were comics in the newspaper. And at that point, neither one of us had any understanding of the fact that comic books and comic strips in the newspaper are completely separate industries. Um, and I believe the receptionist was relieved to know that one of their reporters was a comic book fan, because
Okay.
that gave her someone she could hand this mother and 10-year-old off to. And his name was Roy Everson. And he convinced his editor to not only do a little, community interest story on the local kid that wants to draw comics when he grows up,
Oh
but
wow.
they had, oh, this is going to blow your mind. They had a syndicated kids section in the newspaper that was in the Sunday edition every week. And it was one tabloid sheet folded. So it was a 4-page section, right? He convinced them to take page 4 of this syndicated thing that they're paying for, right? And replace that entire page with a weekly superhero comic that I wrote and drew weekly.
Oh,
And it ran 1 week shy of a year. And it ended when there was a change in editorial and someone came in and very rightly was like, why are we paying for a 4-page syndicated feature and then only publishing 3 pages of it? Let's fix this. But over the course of that year, not only did I get a ton of practice drawing and telling a story and drawing the same characters and developing a narrative and visual storytelling and all that. I mean, you could see the process of me figuring that out week by week. And that also did so much to give me a sense of, this isn't about drawing for fun when you feel like it. This isn't about drawing whatever comes into your head. This is about panel sequences. This is about telling a story. This is about cranking it out every week and having a deadline. So I had those experiences so much earlier in my path to a career than most people ever do. Because I mean, to this day, I'll have people come up to me at conventions that say, you know, oh, I want to draw comics when I grow up, or I want to draw comics now. I mean, I'm already an adult. I still want to get into comics somehow. And they will have pinups and covers and things. I'm like, great. Where's your sequentials? Where are you telling a story? It's like, it's very hard to get into comics and jump right into being a specializing cover artist. You know, most of the work to be had is drawing the stories. So yeah, that was that path. And then, you know, from there to being a professional was, you know, getting a story published in some small press indie comics that I didn't get paid at all, but I got into print. And then there were some where I got paid very, very little. And then the publishers got a little bigger and the paychecks got a little better, to the point where I finally broke into, you know, a major publisher. And, you know, the money wasn't, you know, as much a big step up going in there as I would have preferred, perhaps. But, you know, that's the industry that we all know and love. But yeah, that was my path to getting into comics.
wow. And how old were you at that point?
10.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So I mean, you already were, by 10 years old, you were learning how to put a story together on
I was
top of drawing your stuff.
I was a published comic book artist when I was still 10 years old and going into being 11. Yeah. Yeah.
I was too busy
nuts.
fighting with my brothers and sisters at that point. I didn't even think about doing that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, the joke I always make is, you look at the stuff I was doing then, and like, I may have been 10 years old, but you know, it's pretty good. You'd swear I was like 12. I mean, you know, it is definitely like the work of a kid. My initial ideas were all like incredibly derivative. I was swiping art left and right. You know, but I was doing all the things that you do when you're learning, when you're just figuring it out. My superhero character had the incredibly cool, badass original name of Mr. Muscle, which I was then horrified to learn that there was a cleaning product by that name.
Wow.
Oh no! But so yeah, I have not made a big push to revive that IP, and
Well, I mean,
and make a go of it now.
well, I mean, if you look at Alex Ross, he actually posts pictures of his actual colors when he colored when he was younger, and he compares that to now. I mean, you're right there. You have your mom has your stuff, so you can actually compare the two. That's so awesome.
Everybody starts somewhere, and you know, most kids, whether it is drawing, whether it is just playtime, are creative in one way or another. And the thing that separates people that are creative as adults isn't that they ever started doing that. It's like, they're the ones that didn't stop.
Yes.
And I don't know why some people stop. That wasn't my experience. But a lot of people just get distracted by other things and don't exercise that part of their brain like they did when they were kids.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility. I mean, to make sure that you keep practicing to get better. I mean,
Yeah.
you've, I mean, like before I even mentioned, I mean, you got to work on shows that Young Justice at one point, we got season one, season two, because of fans' love for the show bought it back, but then it went into comic book form. You got to work on that as well. You did storyboards as well.
Well, yeah. To be clear, so with Young Justice, I spent years going to conventions clarifying for people like I don't work on the show, I work on the tie-in comic books,
Yes.
and that was the case from when we were doing the original run of the comics that was concurrent with seasons 1 and 2 during the Cartoon Network era, and then when it came back,
Yeah.
but then I actually got a chance to do storyboards and work on the show for season 4, Young Justice Fandoms. And that has led to the career path I'm on now, where I'm still working on comics projects when I can find the time, but my main thing is doing storyboards for animation.
Wow. That's freaking awesome.
It was really fun when we did the Young Justice Targets series, which was the most recent comic book incarnation of those tie-in comics, because it felt a little bit like a victory lap. It felt like they'd loop around and do comics again after having had the experience of working for a year and a half on a season of the TV show. And so the level of immersion in that art style and that world and all of that was like even that much stronger than it had been when I was doing the comics the first time around.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, so I have to ask. And
Yeah.
this is not favorite because everybody's like it's asking who your favorite child is. But which character from Young Justice did you like drawing the most? Was it Artemis? Was it Superboy?
Well, it sounds like a cop out to say, but the feature of Young Justice that made it so great to draw as a comic is the comics tended. I mean, there'd be stories certainly where the whole team showed up,
Yeah.
but we would tend to do story arcs. Like the original run of comics was big on two-parters, because Greg wanted to tell more involved multi-part stories, and the two-parter was as far as DC would let him stretch that kind of storytelling on what they viewed as a kids title. Because it was based on an animated TV show, they insisted on categorizing it as an all ages book, which they
Oh yeah.
then viewed as being for a relatively young demographic, even though that's not how the show is set up. That wasn't what the creative team on the book were trying to do, but it was what we were kind of locked into.
Yeah.
What was really maddening for both Greg and myself was that because of that, the both in terms of how individual comic shops would organize books on their shelves, and also if you would look at the solicitations, either like on the DC website or the Diamond catalog or whatever it is, they wouldn't group it with the other superhero books. It would be with the other kids' titles. So it would be with like
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes and all that stuff. And for a while there, just to drive us crazy, they took all of their superhero books with younger characters, so like Teen Titans and Robin and all that stuff, and they called that category of titles Young Justice. But the Young Justice comic they were doing wasn't in that category. It was in the all ages titles.
Yeah.
So we were just like, how is anybody supposed to find this book? So yeah, that kind of drove us nuts. But what was the question? There was an original question in there somewhere.
So which character
Which
did
character?
you
So we'd have these two-part stories, and they tended to, we would do a story like, oh, this is going to be a little more focused on Artemis. Oh, now this one's a little more focused on Calder, and you would kind of get to explore some of the characters by
Yeah.
giving them a bit of the spotlight from story to story. And what was great about that is, like, I love Artemis. I adore Artemis. But you do a story that's focused on Artemis, and after a while, I'm like, oh man, if I have to come up with one more super dynamic archery pose that looks like plausible, but she's like leaping through the air and firing, all this crazy stuff. Plus, like, all the detail. There she is. All the detail on her bow, because she doesn't just have like a simple bow. It's this super complicated, specifically shaped, collapsing compound bow thing. It got to be kind of a pain to do all that specific stuff. So right around the time that I was starting to get tired of it, we get to the end of that plot line, and we'd shift gears, like, oh, now we're doing like Calder stuff. We're going to do an Atlantis story arc. Awesome. Nice. So now I get to draw all this undersea stuff for a while. And then right around the time I was getting a little tired of coming up with like swimming poses. Oh, now we're going to shift gears, and we're going to. So, that's what was really fun about it, is, because I loved all the characters. If you want me to like really nail it down, I grew up with Batman being my absolute all-time favorite superhero character. So anything Bat Family was always a bit of an extra treat. So, Robin and Nightwing, as far as like members of the team, were always especially fun. When Batman would actually get to show up in the story, I'm like, I'm getting to draw Batman again. Because even though I drew a lot of Batman on Justice League and on the Batman Strikes, it's kind of weird in that I've rarely gotten to draw just like Batman like out of my head, like the way I would want to approach the character. Because I'm drawing the models from the TV show. I'm drawing somebody else's version of Batman. I can put a lot of myself into it, but I'm still kind of like locked into somebody else's conception of what the suit should look like and what his build looks like and all that. And, that was still true on Young Justice, but Phil Barassa, who is the lead character designer on that show, his style was close enough to my natural sensibilities myself that, like, oh, I don't feel that. I mean, yes, I'm needing to be careful to like stay really on model for this, but it felt like a much more natural fit. It didn't feel like as big of a stretch, as opposed to like Jeff Matsuda's stuff on the Batman.
Yeah,
was great, but like, oh, that is not how I draw. He would do these really stylized designs with a lot of concave curves and things that, like, they were stylized in a 2D sort of way that, like, you can't really track that in 3D, which makes it really hard when you're trying to do an angle to make a shot work. And like, I don't know what that face looks like when you view it from that. So
yes.
So yeah, that, in a long rambly way, that's who I enjoyed drawing.
And I'm gonna bring something up because I had to.
Sure.
And these two that I'm gonna bring up are my favorite, because one is Harley's my favorite, like hardcore animated series. Fell in love with her. Batman animated series, fell in love with, and of course I'm a Doctor Who fan. You're a Doctor Who fan. This one is so freaking cool, dude. Like, what made you draw this?
A friend of mine, Sarah, was coming around at a convention, and she was collecting sketches in a sketchbook that she wanted different superheroes with the TARDIS, because, like myself, she's a Doctor Who fan who's also into superheroes. And I'm like, well, all right, so you're asking me, so it's going to be Batman. Like, all right, what do you do with Batman and the TARDIS? Like, well, you put him perched on top and have the cape draping over. Sure. And given the era when this was done, I made the Batwolf joke and had that spray painted on there. And it was, I didn't do what you're looking at on screen here. That's a print. This was a convention sketch.
Wow.
But I mean, the drawing I did for her was just an ink line drawing convention sketch. But everyone liked it so much, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not dumb. I clearly need to make a print based out of this idea. So that led to the image you've got on the screen right now.
Yeah, and if you're a Doctor Who fan, you know what the actual phrase is: bow ties are cool, and you have capes are cool. That
Because screw Edna Mode. Capes are cool. And if a cape is going to get you in trouble, maybe you just don't deserve to wear a cape.
yes, that's one piece I would definitely have to get from you when I see you in person. And then the other one, this one right here, this is my favorite too. Oh, dude,
Yeah. Nothing
gorgeous.
nothing good can come of that. There Harley finding the TARDIS, like, that leads to nothing positive for anybody. It doesn't end well for Harley, it doesn't end well for anybody else.
Okay, so we're getting Harley and Elvira. We need a Harley Quinn and her stealing the TARDIS. That would be
Oh, good grief. What
even if
doctor
it's a
would you what doctor would you want to put her with?
okay. So my doctor, my first doctor that my first fell in love with, and companion is McCoy and Ace. Those two are my first. But for actual doctor to actually have her with, it's kind of hard because I love Eccleston and Tennant. I mean, Tennant, just something about Tennant. I would have to go with Tennant. What would you go with?
Well, I mean, she would definitely have that Girl Squad energy if you put her with Jodie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's
Oh
different things to be
yeah.
gained by the chemistry you would get with different incarnations.
Now you
But
make you think. Now, I mean, yeah, Jodie would be because the way she is. Okay, yes, I can see that now because the way she is. Yeah, man, that would be awesome.
yeah, I have a print with the TARDIS that's just a big, vast, dark alien landscape with a little tiny police box in it, and it's casting like a little bit of light from the beacon on top. It's just this very kind of quiet, lonely-looking piece, which I did because I thought, like, the TARDIS is always someplace very busy. Like, I just kind of like the vastness of this. And whenever someone would stop at my table at a convention and take a moment to look at that one, I always be like, "Who's your favorite doctor?" And whatever they would answer, I'd be like, "That's who's in there."
Okay, so I have to ask. Okay, so when did you fall in love with Doctor Who?
um, when I was a kid, I actually had heard about Doctor Who before I ever had a chance to see it. A friend of mine had a book on British science fiction classics,
Oh
and
wow.
so they had Doctor Who in there, but they also had Blake Seven and Quatermass and Thunderbirds and all these different things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, oh, this show has been on for like almost 15 years. Can you imagine something like running that long? There's like four doctors. Just the amount of history that this show had was mind-boggling to me. Um, and then before I ever had a chance to watch any of it, I actually gotten my hands on a couple of the Marvel Premiere reprinted some
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
British Doctor Who comics that had originally been printed in black and white, and then they were had color added to them for Marvel reprinting them in the U.S. And I picked a couple of those up. So I technically first experienced Tom Baker in those,
oh wow.
but experienced it without ever having seen his performance. So I'm seeing this beautiful Dave Gibbons artwork, and I'm reading the stories, and it all seems great, but like you can't fully appreciate the Fourth Doctor without the maniacal magic of Tom Baker's performance. So they finally were going to start showing it in my local market, which at the time was southern Minnesota, so the Minneapolis PBS station.
Yep, that's where I
Uh,
saw it.
and I somehow they were showing it weekdays in serialized form, and I somehow completely perfectly missed all 4 episodes of his first story, Robot. So the first Doctor Who episode I ever saw was episode 1 of Ark in Space, and that is not a bad episode to start on.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
pretty great introduction to Doctor Who. So yeah, I was absolutely hooked on Tom Baker, was hooked on the show. And now I'm one of those people where like it's hard for me to even say who a favorite Doctor is, because not only does my brain doesn't work that way. I really don't have favorites. If you ask me, like, I don't have a favorite food. I just, you're in different moods, different days. I could get, if whatever answer I pick today, I'd have to pick a different answer tomorrow. But Tom was my first, and so I think a lot of the tone of his early seasons and the way he played the character is kind of like the default setting to me.
Yeah.
But there's others I love a lot. I mean, I like all of them. I love all of them. But
yeah, I mean,
some days I'm more like in the mood to rewatch some than others.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about it. And I was just gonna say, you don't get tired of watching it. You could watch it. I mean, I've gone through the seasons from when X-Men first came back to now. I think I've already watched it about 8 times from beginning to end. And it seems like every time I watch it, I'm like, how did I miss this? Or you know what I mean? And then even we're here to talk about your comics, but you mentioned Doctor Who.
Hey, we're all fans here. It's all connected. It's all
Okay.
connected, man. It's all connected.
Are you caught up from the last episode that just aired?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is everybody watching out there caught up for that? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Hey, spoilers. If you haven't watched it, too bad. When we see supposedly we're looking at Rose, coming back. And there's trailers out there that we're saying it's Bad Wolf because when she looks into the TARDIS and the TARDIS looks into her, there's so much. I'm like, my mind is blown at that point. I'm just like,
I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it seems like there's got to be something fishy just because, one, I'm skeptical that there would be a plan for her to come back long term as the Doctor.
Yeah.
I feel like this feels like another stunt in the same way that bringing David Tennant back was kind of a stunt to get some publicity and rejuice the show a little bit, in the 60th anniversary. Which, whether it's a good idea to do that or not is a whole other conversation, but it strikes me as that's kind of what they're doing here. And then, as everybody has pointed out, in the end credits, it says, Ncuti Gatwa is the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor, and introducing Billie Piper doesn't say as the Doctor. So, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I have found a lot of recent Doctor Who to be a mixed bag, but for people who have really enjoyed it, I'm not going to tell you not to enjoy it. I am not somebody who is rooting for the show to fail. I want it to be great. It is frustrating when I don't love it as much as I want to love it.
It has its ups and downs, just like with Smallville. They had filler episodes and they had the goods and bads. And it factors in on the writing as well. But one of the things that the Big Bad Wolf is so huge, and that's what really got me, because I was like, I love the Bad Wolf episode, that whole series that we dealt with. But yeah, I definitely am looking forward to it. I mean, and then not only that, you got to work with one of my favorite writers, and he just didn't write for. Of course, guys, if you haven't read, he wrote the Doctor Who run, and then Christopher got to draw this. I mean, you got to work with Dan Slott. How was doing Doctor Who? And
well, I tell you, I had been a fan of Dan's for a long time. I've been following his stuff since long before his run on Spider-Man. Which I feel like is what really elevated him to being an A-lister as far as comics writers. I mean, I knew his stuff from back when he was doing Batman Adventures, or was it Gotham Knight? I mean, whatever the incarnation of the animated Batman book was during the era he was doing it. And then Marvel 2-in-1, the Thing team up book that he did. I loved that stuff. Not only did I like his writing, but his sensibilities seemed very compatible with mine as far as like a little bit old school, a little bit fresh and contemporary. Do something that could be taken seriously and has some sophistication to it, but still has a sense of fun. And so, I'd not ever had a chance to meet him. Well, I
Oh wow.
was at a convention. I think it was the New York Comic Con. I knew he was there. Hadn't had a chance to track him down because it's a zoo. I'm busy staffing my own table all day, and it's craziness. So I usually, when I go to a convention, like don't even look at whoever else is going to be there because like I'm not going to see him anyway. Why torture myself? I'm not there to hunt down the people I'm a fan of. I'm there to be at my table and let fans come to me. But I'm on my way out of the building after show close, and the place is thinning out, and I'm on my way out, and sitting at a table near the exit to the floor, on his phone is Dan Slott. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go over and introduce myself. And apparently he'd been just sitting there, kind of checking messages while waiting for the crowds to thin out, so he has an easier time just going straight out the building without having to like be waiting to get past people. And I went to introduce myself, and I get my name out, and I start to explain, who I am in comics. And he says, "Oh, you don't have to tell me who you are. You've drawn Doctor Who." So, and apparently, you do anything connected to Doctor Who, and you are now on Dan Slott's radar. So we immediately hit it off. And I don't remember how long it was after that he was in a position to potentially get to do some Doctor Who. And Titan Comics, who was the publisher, asked Dan if there was anyone in particular he'd like to work with as an artist on that book. And he asked for me, which is beyond flattering.
Wow, dude.
And then I ended up not being able to draw the whole story because it was coming at a time when, my day job had evolved into, like I said, as now I'm doing storyboards for animation, and the comic stuff is on the side. And originally, I had this window of opportunity, like, okay, one animation project is coming to an end. I know what I'm doing next, but it doesn't start for a few months. So I've got a nice gap of time in there that I could take on a project. So like 48-page Doctor Who graphic novel. Awesome, let's do it. And then due to Dan's schedule doing what Dan's schedule often tends to do, the script wasn't ready. And by the time it was, that window had largely closed for me. And I tried to like bow out gracefully. I'm like, I would love to do this, but I cannot deliver it to you in a time frame even close to what you're hoping for. And so, no offense on my part if you need to find someone else to do it. Well, thankfully, the way the story was structured, it had there's an envelope of a main story and then these vignettes of stories within the story, which just lent itself to very organically splitting those pages between two artists. So instead of drawing the whole thing, I drew the connecting bits, the present day bits, as it were, and the vignettes were handled by Matthew Dow Smith, and so I still got to draw a piece of it, and then I was blown away that Dan called in a favor and got Adam Hughes to do a cover, and the book you held up earlier, that's Adam Hughes' gorgeous cover. And then it was as we were getting to like the book was about done, and they found out that they were going to be bringing David Tennant back for the 60th anniversary of the show. And Titan Comics, not being dumb, realized, oh, maybe we should come out with a David Tennant graphic novel closer to the time when David Tennant's going to be on the TV show again. So they delayed its release by several months from when it was originally going to come out.
Yeah.
At which point they wanted to have new cover art since they were having to redo the solicitation. So they basically, used the Adam Hughes cover as a variant, and then had me do a cover, which meant I got to do a cover for it as well. So like that made up a little bit for the disappointment of not having gotten to draw all the cool classic monsters that showed up in those vignettes that I had to give away to another artist. Like, at least I got to draw them on the cover. Because, I was like, wait, there are mummy robots from Pyramids of Mars and I don't get to draw them? That's not fair. Well, I finally got to draw them.
No, your cover is awesome because it has a little bit of everything in there. You got the Cybermen. You've got,
everything on that cover is in the story. So
yeah, so it was worth the wait. The story was great. The art was great. And like I literally pre-ordered it, and then they're like, "Oh, it got pushed back." And I'm
that's why it was then finding out that David Tennant was going to be doing the 60th anniversary special,
and that was freaking awesome special as well, guys. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Doctor Who. My wife never knew who Doctor Who was. I introduced her to Eccleston, and at that time frame, that's when we were kind of a year behind. The UK got it first, and then we got it after. And it was on sci-fi. And when it came back, I was like, "Oh, I can't wait!" And my wife's like, "Well, what's Doctor Who?" And I'm like, "It's an awesome show about a time traveling doctor and his companion."
The thing that was such a pleasant surprise for me when the show came back, because as a fan, and I would talk to my friends who were also Doctor Who fans. I think all the fans must have had this conversation of like, it wasn't will it come back, it was when will it come back and in what form. Because there had been talk over the years about movies, there had been talks about reviving the TV series. We had the TV movie in 1996. It was meant to be a pilot for a new series, and that didn't happen for better or worse. And my concern always was there's no way you bring Doctor Who back without having to make the production more modern, a little more big budget, a little, I always describe classic Doctor Who as trying to do really ambitious science fiction with the budget and resources of like the weather segment of the local TV news. Because pretty much they had like green screen and like, they knew where there was a gravel quarry they could shoot in. And that was about what they had, and £1.98 for a budget. And the fact that they managed to not only, granted, you watch the 2005 season now, and it looks a little chintzy compared to what we've gotten used to, but it was a huge step up for the production values of the classic series. But it still had the whimsy and the wackiness and the weirdness that you expect from Doctor Who. It wasn't like Star Trek, but British. It had that kind of, it is strange. It is occasionally serious and occasionally tongue-in-cheek, and all those things that you expect and want from classic Doctor Who. They managed to preserve somehow, and yet update it into something modern, which I was like, better than I ever imagined it would work out.
It definitely was. And then you write it, drawing for Titan. I mean, like I said, this was my first Doctor, my first companion, and McCoy, and that's where I fell in love with it. And then, this is a cool cover too. I like this cover right here.
Yeah, so before the Dan Slott graphic novel, I had drawn 2 miniseries for Titans, and then bunch of just random covers that they had me do. The one you just showed with David Tennant and Billy Piper was the leftmost panel in a series of 4 connected covers,
Nice.
and so that was fun to compose. But the Sylvester McCoy one, that was an issue of the 7th Doctor miniseries I did. But the first story I drew for Titan was Heralds of Destruction, written by Paul Cornell and featuring the 3rd Doctor. That was a blast to do because Paul wrote just a banger of the script, and it gave me everything I wanted. I got to draw the 3rd Doctor and units and Joe Grant, and they're driving around in Bessie at one point, and just like I was like, oh yeah, this has all been ticked off the list now. I'm good. Yep. And then, I got to do the story with Dan Slott. It opens with that wonderful 2-page sequence of the Doctor giving a warning to his companions about this particularly dangerous species, and something you need to understand about them if you ever run into them. And the way Dan had him deliver that warning is you get about a sentence-long snippet of it from panel to panel. And it starts with the 1st Doctor speaking directly to camera. And then you have the 2nd Doctor continuing it, talking to Jamie, and the 3rd Doctor telling it to Joe, and on until you end up with the current Doctor in that story, David Tennant's 10th Doctor.
Yeah. Which
allowed me to draw every Doctor from 1 through 10 in their era appropriate console room. So I was just like, yeah, okay, yes, not that I'm not happy to draw more Doctor Who, but like if this is all I ever get to do, I'm good.
Dude, I mean that you can't make this up for anyone. When you have that opportunity to work on something that you love in the industry. So my love has been comic books and art, and my dad used to give me crap for watching too much cartoons, too much old TV, and reading comics. And then now my 2 worlds, I love basketball. Spurs is my hometown, love basketball. And I got to meet David Robinson when I was like 13, and he's like, oh, so what do you like to do? And I'm like, oh, I like playing basketball. I go, but I also like comics. And he goes, always do what you love.
Absolutely.
I was like, cool,
Yeah.
And dude, 20-something years later, or not even 20-something more years later, I was able to help get Tim Duncan, which is the biggest Spur, one of the biggest Spurs, on the cover of the Punisher comic. And those are my 2 worlds to bring them together. Yes, like you being a kid writing in a paper, and then getting to do this, drawing Doctor Who. I mean, you can't ask for anything, man. That's crazy.
I can find things to nitpick about and be frustrated by in the course of my career. I think anyone that works in a creative field can tell stories of projects they wanted to do and didn't get to work on, or something they did work on but it didn't turn out the way they wanted, or just one thing or another that if you were on the inside and you know how the sausage gets made, frustrations and disappointments and things that weren't everything they should have been. But from the outside,
yes,
I look at the body of work I've had the opportunity to create, and I look at all of the childhood favorite properties I've gotten to. I got to draw a Batman 66 comic. I got to do Batman with Adam West, and it even had like 2 of my favorite Batman villains in the story. Frank Gorshin's Riddler, and one of the lesser villains that I just adore because I think the episode is so great, Falseface. I even got to do that. I've gotten to do Star Trek comics. I've gotten to do Kolchak the Night Stalker. something early in my career for the people that have seen a career that so much of it has been animation tie-in stuff. I drew the original official comic book adaptation of Reanimator.
That's huge, man. Every animator scared the crap out of me when I
Yeah,
watched it
but
as a
like that's
kid.
a crazy range of stuff, man. It's so funny to me
Yeah.
that like I've kind of gotten pegged as being this media adaptation guy, especially like animated stuff, because like that was never a goal of mine starting out. It's like acting. You have success doing a thing, and then that's what
Yeah.
people think of you for, to offer you more of the same. So, as much as it was a hurdle to get like my first Doctor Who job, which was not cartoony, not based on an animation property, uh, but like still, that hasn't gotten DC and Marvel to say, oh, we could hire Chris for things that aren't based on animated TV shows. No, they still basically know me for doing the animated stuff. Which, don't get me wrong, I love that material. I love working in that style, and I'm very proud of the projects I've worked on. It's just they don't make a ton of those comics, so there's not as many of those
Yeah.
jobs to be had. So I'm always looking to expand and do new things and get an opportunity to show the wider range of stuff I can do.
Nice. So mentioning
Yeah.
the IP, when working on Doctor Who's IP, was there a lot of like, because of course the industry has changed, and this is, I also asked this from a lot of comic book artists and creators. Are basically like with the IPs, you kind of have to put your, like if it's the writer or the artist, they'll draw what they want. They have to submit it to the editor, and they will look at it, and they'll be like, "Oh, can you change this a little bit because this looks too much like this, or we can't incorporate this character because vice versa. They're in another issue." Or with Doctor Who, did they give you more reign to do what you wanted and add stuff
Um,
into the
I
backgrounds?
well, I try not to go too crazy with the personal Easter eggs. Although with Doctor Who, so one of the things that's challenging doing comics that are based on anything live action is, I mean, I think it would be helpful regardless, but especially trying to create artwork at the pace you need to do to get a full length book turned out on a roughly monthly schedule. Uh, I'm relying heavily on photo reference for these actors, and it's very hard to draw a face completely from scratch and have it stylistically look, the same as, oh,
Yeah.
here's something I photo referenced from a picture of John Pertwee. Um, so you end up casting all those characters that might be original to the story that you're drawing with real faces. Um, Sometimes those are just, I would find an actor that I knew I could find a lot of pictures of them online, but I would like, oh, it's that actor, but I've changed their nose or changed their hair or done something so that no one's going to recognize them, hopefully, as who I sourced them from. Sometimes I had the opportunity to actually just make it like someone I know that I could like take some photos of them.
Oh
But
wow.
that would be dependent on, um, you know, is there, do I happen to know someone that would be good casting for this character in the story? One of my friends who is a huge Doctor Who fan, um, is my friend Joseph Scrimshaw, who is also from Minnesota, where I'm from. That's where I originally knew him from. And then before I moved out to Los Angeles to do storyboarding, he moved out to Los Angeles because he's a comedy writer. He's done scripts for several TV shows and does
Oh
live
wow.
theater and does all kinds of cool things. But huge Doctor Who fan, and in the third Doctor miniseries, um, there the Master. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Master. It was one of the other villain in the story has a couple of lackeys working for him that were just supposed to be a couple of kind of nondescript guys who were like kind of techies
Yeah.
that were at his disposal. Well, Joseph and his brother Joshua, who were both performers and both big Doctor Who fans. I mean, they've done Doctor Who comedy shows. They are diehard Doctor Who fans. I'm like, I'm
Wow.
gonna make it these guys because they're gonna be delighted to be in a Doctor Who comic. Uh, and I'm also going to harvest all the photos I need from them from social media and not tell them I'm doing it, so it's a surprise. And one of them ends up getting killed by the master using his tissue compression eliminator.
Oh,
And when that device got used on the TV show, they would show the person, incrementally
yeah.
shrinking down. That's what the weapon does. Well, in a comic book panel, especially if you don't have room on the page to do multiple panels to show that happening in stages, you
Yeah.
need to find a way to like in a single panel show that happening. So I drew this panel where like it's like multiple images of the character in kind of a pained pose, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, because putting a picture of something online, a static image like that works better than having to figure out a way to translate a video clip into
Yeah.
a standalone image. If you go to the wiki page for Doctor Who and look up the tissue compression eliminator, the picture they have illustrating what it does is my drawing of my friend Joseph. So I got to tell him, like, you are now the illustration of the effects of the tissue compression eliminator. And he was rather
That's
pleased with
freaking
that.
awesome. Wow. Dude, that's so freaking cool. I mean, and to have a friend like you to draw, like I have a buddy of mine. I don't know if you saw my Instagram. He's a local artist who does spray painting murals and stuff.
Hmm.
And he did a piece of me with my face and dressed in old school gear with my Spurs, San Antonio hat on and stuff. And it's just cool when an artist friend of yours does that for you. It means so much. You know what I mean?
And I honestly I would do it more, but like I said, you're kind of limited by, if the character in the script is supposed to be like an old British Army general, like, well, okay, that rules out a lot of friends of mine that don't look like old British Army generals.
Oh,
So yeah, I have friends I would love to find an opportunity to include them in something just because I know they would get a kick out of it. But you have to kind of look for the opportunities where you can find them. And there's other times where it's just sort of like I I I just need to. It's one panel. I just need to put something in here and not make a big production out of it and spend half the day figuring this out. So
so basically, you're you're like me. You have two jobs. So during the day, you're doing your storyboard stuff, and then when you
yep.
get off of work, you're doing your comic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, very often it's like, oh, this storyboard project comes to an end, and the next one doesn't necessarily like start on the following Monday.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
I'll try to find a comics project to do in between. But right now, yeah, I'm doing some animation work during the day, and then I'm still finishing up the Skull Island comic I'm working on right now. So yes, add King Kong to the list of properties I've I've had the
Hey,
pleasure of getting to work on.
King Kong, Godzilla is on fire right now, and people. Which, mind you, this has been around for years. Godzilla, King Kong, and now it's just the younger
Given
generation.
given that like I'm sure we all grew up on the same Godzilla movies, thinking back to like was it 2 years ago that like Godzilla versus Kong and then Godzilla minus one come out in the same year. And it's like this is insane how big Godzilla is right now. I mean, how big? But you take my meaning. How big a deal Godzilla is right now.
Yeah, big. I mean, and the thing is, it's they're introducing like right now they're doing the Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League, and that one they
And
did the
and
first series.
I'm only a little resentful that I didn't get to draw it. It's okay. It's okay. I'll be fine. I'll. Oh, fine.
I would, dude. That would be awesome to see you do a cover. So I love. Okay, I'm gonna get back to this art stuff now too.
Yeah, yeah.
So people come up to you and ask for commissions, and they get pieces. You can do them on covers. You do them on, if they do them in art books. Um, what is the most, character that they ask you to draw on sketchbooks or, commission art books that you get asked for?
Oh boy. Back when I was doing a Batman book, uh, it was definitely at least half were Batman. But these days, you know, I'm associated with Doctor Who, and sometimes people will ask for something Doctor Who related. But short of being at a Doctor Who convention, it's not that common that people come up at a comic book show and ask for a Doctor Who uh, convention sketch. Although, I mean, it happens. If you look at my website, they've done a number of them.
Yeah.
They're just not as common. They're all over the place. I mean, I've done a lot of Batman villains. I have one regular who has me do like a couple of different members of the Legion of Superheroes every year. So I've probably done like a dozen for him by now.
Oh wow.
And I love Legion of Superheroes. I would kill to draw a Legion of Superheroes. Um, um, it's all over the map. One of the other many things I've gotten involved with is there's this late night horror host named Svengoolie.
Yes.
And I've even had people come up to me now wanting me to do a Svengoolie sketch for them. So I'm like, okay, this is not anything I anticipated several years ago.
So, and then when you do these shows, do you normally open your commissions ahead of time before going to this? Because most, or they do it like, hey, first come, first serve, the
Yeah,
first 10.
um, I've tried it both ways. It used to be that I would go to a convention and was so prioritizing like I need to make money at this show because whether you know it or not, yes, there are definitely some creators that you'll see at a convention that the convention paid to bring there. They paid for their travel, put them up in a hotel, all of that. But mostly, especially like a big artist alley at a convention, most of those people are there on their own dime, paying for their own hotel. They probably paid a fee of several $100s for that table space. So you go to a convention like that, and like we're all there trying to just make that money back so that we don't go in the hole before we can even think about
Yeah.
making any money at that convention. Um, so that's often where I am at shows, and it used to be that that puts you in this mindset of anything I can do to make more money. So I would take on more commissions than I probably should, which meant I would work the full day at my table during show hours, and then every spare moment I had between show close and show open the next morning that I wasn't sleeping or having my dinner was spent doing more drawing.
Wow.
And I've just gotten to the point where, I mean, thankfully, money is not quite as tight now, and usually I don't have to make that quite as big of a priority. Although, don't get me wrong, making money at a con is nice. But I also just like I get tired, man. I also want to just like have fun spending time with my friends that I know at the convention, and just kind of enjoy the experience of being at the con a little bit, which means I end up taking on fewer commissions. So sometimes I will announce in advance. Other times it's first come first served. And I don't even usually necessarily go into the convention with this idea of I'm going to do this many. It usually is more about as the weekend goes on. Like if I go in Friday, and like by the end of day one, I've got like a list of like 7 or 8 drawings. I'm like, I need to cap this now to get through all this by the end of the day on Sunday.
Yeah.
Whereas, if I do a few and then like a few more, like okay, I'm keeping up with it. It's fine because between the big challenge is I'm a talker when I'm at my table.
Oh,
Fans come up and want to chat, and I'm happy to chat. Um, I'm not someone who just sits there with my head down and they're drawing the whole time, which means it's hard for me to get a lot of drawing done at my table. So all that drawing gets done back at the hotel in the evening. And like I said, like I want to relax and I need my sleep.
yeah. No, I've
So
seen that happen. Yeah. So then with the other question I always ask the artist,
yeah,
and I've heard you in interviews say that you've gone to digital because it's a lot faster to finish and it helps to changes because you can do changes faster.
yeah.
Um, is there certain items that you will do original pages for, like say the Doctor Who cover you did for the Dan Slott run? Did you do an original for
Oh
that?
well, that cover. I mean, if you see the detail on it, like that would have been brutal to try to do,
Oh,
not digital because some of those figures. I mean, the thing that gets me, like, I don't know how artists that do really finely detailed work, uh, still in traditional media, how they don't go blind because like you're like there with an artist's loop trying to like you know do a figure that's like half the size of a postage stamp. Um, it's so nice to be able to just blow it up to the size of your screen and draw it big. Um, I mean, I feel like I keep in practice with my traditional media skills when I do those commission drawings.
okay, okay.
I'd love to do more pages as originals. It's just it is more time consuming, and then I feel like especially as more comics get consumed digitally. You know, people can like read comics online and stuff. Like, okay, so you're not just reading it in a book and it's this big. It's on your computer screen, and if you want to look at the art blown away the heck up, you can.
True.
Which then makes me feel like, okay, all that detail has got to be really, really tight. I mean, the big thing that made me first go over to digital wasn't even that. It was like Young Justice. They'd always have me doing scenes where like there's a holographic display of some kind.
Oh yeah, that's
And the
right.
way that
Yeah.
worked best to do that for me is to render that on a separate layer, especially since if it's a control panel or something, that's going to look better if I do it in Photoshop or Illustrator rather than it being a hand drawn looking thing. It looks crisper
Oh.
and cleaner if I do it, not hand drawn. But then I can deliver that on a separate layer, and then when the colorist comes in to do their stage of things, they can apply color to it and then apply it with a certain level of opacity over the background line art, and you get an
Oh.
effect that looks like what you think of it looking like from the TV show. Um,
Oh.
or I did a I did an Avengers coloring book one time that the publisher wanted every character that it would appear on the page. They wanted a complete head to toe artwork of that character. So like if the Avengers are standing around in a group and you can't see all of the Hulk because Captain America is standing in front of him, they still wanted a complete unbroken drawing of the Hulk with Captain America as a separate drawing on a separate layer in front of it, so that if they wanted to take that drawing of the Hulk and repurpose it and use it for something else, they could.
Oh
Now, to
wow.
my knowledge, I don't think they ever repurposed or reused a single drawing from that whole book, but it meant that I had to do all this extra drawing because you may only see a character's head and shoulders, but I've still got to draw the rest of that character
Oh wow.
and then deliver that composited together. So like, okay, here's what this page should look like, but you can take it apart layer by layer and have all these individual
Oh
drawings if you
wow.
so I kept running across stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, I can keep doing this on traditional media in scanning it and putting it together to deliver the digital file for publication that way, which is what I originally started out doing. And they're like, if I'm already doing all this, and the original artwork doesn't resemble the finished page anyway,
Yeah.
then why not just save myself the time and be faster about it and not have to worry about squinting at details and all that, and just get a better result faster by doing it 100% digital.
And it helps you also too with deadlines too, because it's a lot faster to.
Yeah, and that's the thing is every part of drawing comics, and I think this is true of any kind of creative artistic thing done for commercial purposes, is it's not like if you paint as a hobby, you paint when you have the time, you paint when you feel like it, and it's something you're doing for fun.
Yeah.
But if you need to crank out a painting by a deadline, you're working on it whether you're in the mood or not. You might be tired, you might not be in the mood, you might have other things you need to do, but it needs to get done.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly true when you're doing comics. And that isn't to say I don't love what I do. It's the best job ever. But it is work. It's not fun time all the time. And not only does that mean that it feels like work sometimes, even though it's something I love, but it also means that everything you're doing, you're creating in this state of compromise, whether that compromise is because of time, whether it's because an editor or a client has some different vision of what they want from it than what you do. I mean, one of the very common things with comics is, if you're doing a cover for something, they'll very often want 2 or 3 ideas from you for what a cover design could be. And I would say at least half the time, they do not pick the one you like the best.
Yeah.
And it makes you always reluctant to give them more options, because it just gives them more things that they might choose that you wish they hadn't chosen that one. But, if they ask for more than one version, it's kind of hard to not give them more than one version. So, everything that you're doing is you are creating the best execution of that thing possible, given all the different people you were having to answer to, the time that was available, whether you were just feeling it that day, because sometimes you do better work than other days. It's what comes out of you. And that's the nature of doing this for a living. Everything isn't the idealized perfect version. It's like, that's the best I could do with that amount of time on that day. Yeah, and you have to be able to look back and take satisfaction from it, and be proud of it, knowing that it was the best you could do in that time on that day.
I mean, that's true. I mean, because I have a piece here, and this one's because I'm a Blue Beetle fan. Like this one, the background. Yeah. I mean, the detail that's in there, and I mean, so for something like that, how long do you say something like a page deck, that panel would take you to put together?
Oh man, well, I mean, I can tell you that the artist who drew that may creatively have put more energy into that Blue Beetle figure, but in terms of time spent, they probably spent longer drawing windows and all those little buildings than they spent drawing Blue Beetle.
Oh wow!
I always refer to that part of the job as drawing bricks. It's you've conceptualized a piece, and a certain amount of it is going to be executing its kind of grunt work. It's like, okay, we're past the creative part now. Now it's just filling in what needs to be there, because this is the shot you've chosen, and this is how the perspective works, and and it's not as creative, and it may not be as rewarding or satisfying, but it's part of the job to finish the thing. And that's why you'll hear about, I don't know how much it happens anymore, but you used to hear about artists that would work with assistants and things like that. Oh, that's the kind of thing that you used to have assistants do, is like, fill that in.
Oh, back in the day. So in other words, you would do the main panel, and then they say, "Hey, I already drew the outlines for these buildings. Go ahead and fill in the smaller stuff," kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And then you'd pay them out of your share,
Oh wow.
uh, and and uh, and sometimes you'd see on comics, it'll say, you know, um, art by so and so with, and there'll be an extra name. But more often than not, like that person, like they just get paid and their name isn't on it
Okay.
because it's the grunt work. I mean, it really is, and not to belittle it. It's just that by its nature, some parts are more creative than other parts.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I mean, all the way back to when comics were first, when you were actually doing comics, and when I interviewed Fernando Reis, he talked about like some artists worked on main titles, but they didn't get credit for it, even though they were doing the background stuff of it, and so they didn't really get their name out there. But occasionally, their name would get attached to the work that they did. Um, but of course, back then, it's when in New York and DC, when Marvel was on one side of the street and DC was on the other side of the street, and you actually had to mail in your pages compared to like now.
Yeah. Oh, I started. I'm old enough that when I started working for DC Comics, they would send me the paper I was going to draw it on, which was pre-printed with the blue line that has the margins and
Yeah.
all the little fields to fill in for your name and the name of the title and what issue and what page, um, and any reference material I needed. They would be a stack of Xeroxes of stuff from the DC Who's Who or from a previous issue where this character had appeared or anything like that. And then I would finish the artwork and it would go in a FedEx box and get shipped off to the publisher. And then within a few years, they're just emailing me stuff with attachments, and I'm sending in digital files as the way of delivering the artwork. And the original, even when I was drawing with physical media, I would scan the pages. Those pages never left my studio, and what I turn in are the digital files of the scans.
Wow. So I have to ask, was there any time at that time that one of your actual art pieces got lost by FedEx? I never thought about that. I had to ask.
I've heard of that happening. I thankfully never had like an issue go missing or anything. I think when I was doing the Batman strikes and I was working with Terry Beatty as my inker back when I had an inker rather than inking my own stuff. Um, One page somehow went missing, and thankfully I'd made a photocopy of the pencils, so I just gave those to him, and he lightboxed it and just inked it from the photocopy. Um, but yeah, I mean that's scary. It's one of the reasons why I got very diligent about. I will make a copy of this before it leaves my hands, whether it's a scan or a Xerox or whatever. But like, there will be a high resolution record of this page before I entrust it to a carrier.
Yeah, that to me, like, okay, I'm a person who likes to buy physical media in person. Don't get me wrong, I don't like buying online. I have to physically see it. I have to, like, even the art. I don't know if it's just because I like to meet the artist when I'm buying the stuff. You know what I mean? And anytime I buy an art print, I always like to get the artist to sign it, even though um, he may have signed it in a print, like because the artwork is it's actual reprint of like so many copies. I'll still ask them to sign it again, a physical signature. Um, I don't know if it's just because of me or what, but that's how I am when it comes to buying actual art. I have so much art that I don't have enough room to hang my stuff. I have to interchange things throughout my whole house.
I keep meaning to do a blog post about this. When I'm set up with my prints at a convention, I will have a portfolio out in front of me that has the selection of prints I've got available. And the thing I would hear all the time would be people saying, "Oh, I love this stuff. I don't have any more room to put any more artwork. My walls are covered." And think anything more of it. And someone finally mentioned, and I thought this was brilliant. I keep not remembering to take the time to make a post about this. They said, I took a portfolio like that, like art portfolio that with the plastic sleeves that you flip, and they said I just bought one of those and I filled it up with artwork and I use it like a coffee table book.
Hey, that's a good idea right there.
It is. I mean, not only does it give you room to have a bunch more stuff on display, but it's going to get looked at. People are going to flip through it, and then if you want to swap it out for some different stuff, it's easy enough to just take some pages out, or just put a different portfolio out on the table than the last time your friend came over, or whatever.
Yeah,
So
that's true because it does get expensive when you try to frame them all.
yeah, well, that's the other thing is you don't have to deal with all the framing expense, which is a lot.
Yeah. So I have not had the honor yet to get a piece from you because I have not met you yet in person. And that is, I hope one day to meet you in person
That
to
would be
get.
great.
So I have blank sketch covers. I always have sketch covers.
Aha.
And I love to get, you know, art pieces with, and that's the one thing that, guys, if you are getting into comics, always buy the blank sketch covers because you never know when you meet an artist like Christopher, you can just have him sign it. It looks more clear. If you want, you have him draw one. You can have him draw one character, have another artist draw another character, and there's so much you can do with the blank sketch covers.
Yep. Yep.
And do you stock up on that too? Do you have people come up to you and do that too? As well, ask you if you have any sketch covers? I know some artists do that.
I don't go out of my way to like buy a supply of them because I mean, to me, if I'm doing a sketch for somebody, it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's on a sketch cover
Okay, okay,
or I bring my own Bristol, or if they have a sketchbook or
okay,
whatever.
okay.
And given that I don't have, whatever publisher the book might be from, I don't have usually the opportunity to get them for anything less than what any other customer would be able to buy them for. So
Okay, okay.
it's not like without really um, raising the price to something that I feel like I'd be price gouging, that there's any profit in doing it for me. So I just like, if you've got a sketch cover, I'm happy to draw on it. But like, yeah, I don't carry like a pile of them around to conventions with me now.
Gotcha. So before we go, for an up and comer new artist that wants to get into the comic industry, of course, it's changed from when you got in. What would you, what words of wisdom would you give them to if they want to follow this route?
Well, I'll start with the most discouraging part and get more positive as the answer goes. The worst part is, um, it, comics is a really tough business. Even if you're working, the pay tends to not be great. The number of people, writers and artists, that are successful enough in comics that are making a page rate or making enough royalties to be making really good money doing it. It's like the difference between being a working musician and being a famous rock star. It's like it is a fraction of a percentage of the people that are professionally doing this for a living. Um, it can happen, but it's not like it's a realistic expectation, and it is as much about chance and random opportunity than anything about how talented you are. So, like, your stuff might be great. Do not count on becoming fabulously successful and wealthy doing this. Um, the truth is, if you have the talent, skills, and perseverance, dedication, reliability to make it in comics, you could make more money using those same skills in almost any other field. Comics do not pay great. Now, that said, what do I do for a living? I do comics. Why? Because I love doing comics. I wouldn't know how to completely walk away from doing comics. I've shifted into doing animation storyboards as my priority, but I still work on comics when I can fit it in and find a way to do it because it's my creative first love.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't try. I'm just saying have a backup plan. Recognize that even if it's whether it's just starting out or something that you continue to do on the side, being able to apply those skills to work in other parts of the commercial art is going to serve you well in the long run. As far as getting to the point that you can get professional work, by all means, do look at what other artists are out there that you like, but don't just look at other comic book art. Look at classic art, look at photography, look at the real world. Learn how anatomy really works by looking at real anatomy, not by looking at how other comic book artists draw anatomy.
Yeah.
Learn how to draw drapery and folds in clothing, because even if you want to draw Superman, you still are going to have to draw Clark Kent once in a while. You've got to be able to draw the normal people in addition to being able to draw the fantastic things. You can't just have a portfolio full of covers and pinups. You've got to show that you know how to tell a story. And that is action, that is quiet conversation, that is drama, that is comedy. So you need to develop all of those skills. And then the final thing is just filling a portfolio with samples of Batman or Spider-Man or whoever your favorite characters are, I don't think is the best use of your time. The best use of your time is whether you're writing something yourself, or if you are an artist that just feels like you can't write, find a writer to work with and make your own comics. Put something out there. If you're not going to make a profit doing it right away, but you're not making any less money doing that than you would be just doing portfolio pieces. And doing your own comic does a couple things that filling a portfolio with Batman and Spider-Man samples doesn't do. One, if someone that could hire you to work on a comic sees a portfolio full of Batman, Superman, Daredevil, whatever it is, they don't know how long it took you to do those pages. They don't know how consistent you are in finishing what you start. They don't know any of those things. But if they see a complete story of something that's your own creation, that makes a statement about, I can do this consistently. I can start a project I can finish a project. And the best thing about all of it is if you do 20 pages of Batman samples and you show it to DC and they don't hire you, it's not a darn thing you can do with those pages, because DC is the only one that can publish Batman. If you do your own comic and you do 20 pages, you've got a book. You can put that into print somewhere. Whether you find a publisher that wants to make a deal with you to publish it, whether you self-publish, it accomplishes more than pages sitting in your portfolio will accomplish. And, doing your own little indie book, even if it doesn't make you any money, it's a better calling card for your skills and talents than those pages in a portfolio would be. So make your own comics. Get out there and make your own comics. It doesn't need to look exactly like someone else's. By all means, if there's an artist that you like and an effect that they do, learn what tools they use and all of that. But you don't have to copy anybody. You find the style, you find the working methods that work best for you.
Yeah.
And then make your own comics. So that's my advice.
Well, there you go, guys. From Christopher to you, if you want to get an industry, these are things to follow. Again, Christopher, thank you for coming on, taking the time out of your busy day, literally, to come on and talk to us about comics and stuff that you worked on. And where can they find you? And if they want to buy any of those pieces that I did show on there, where can they go?
I have an Etsy store, which has all my prints available, the same ones I have at a convention.
Oh,
Nice. They're a little more to buy from me online, but you can buy them from me online and I'll ship them to you. And let's see, just to make sure I'm not saying the thing wrong. I am Chris Jones Art on Etsy. You can find all of those prints there. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Blue Sky on social media on ChristopherJonesArt.com on Blue Sky. Christopher Jones Art is also my Facebook page. Those are the two main places you can find me. I do have a website that's ChristopherJonesArt.com. I keep not updating it as often as I mean to, so you're better off finding me on the social media.
But cool. Hey guys, go like, follow, so you can see the cool works he's doing. And like he mentioned, he's doing Skull Island. When does that one drop by chance?
The first issue, I believe, is out later this month. Like maybe next Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
It is a continuation of the MonsterVerse Skull Island animated series that was on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
There's a 4-issue miniseries called Return to Skull Island, and then a 4-issue miniseries called Escape from Skull Island.
Nice. Well, there you go, guys. Pick it up. It'll be in comic book stores next week, and don't miss out. If not, try to see if you can pre-order or to make sure the copy gets held for you. Again, Chris, thank you for coming on, and I look forward to getting you back on. Maybe talk some more Doctor Who.
Sounds great. My pleasure.